The stars had never looked so peaceful. Captain stood at the observation window of the horizon's edge, watching the massive alien station grow larger as they approached. The Gathering, they called it. A place where 7 different species came together to talk, trade, and make peace. And now, for the first time, humans had been invited. Was 47 years old. She had gray in her hair and lines around her eyes from years of commanding ships through dangerous space. But today, she allowed herself to feel something close to hope. This was not a battle. This was a beginning. "Captain, we're receiving docking clearance," said from the communications station. She was young, barely 24, with a quiet voice that people often ignored, but had learned to listen to her. Quiet people notice things others missed. "Take us in, Helm," ordered. The horizon's edge carried 47 humans. Scientists, diplomats, security officers, engineers. They represented everything humanity had become since leaving Earth 200 years ago. 12 colony worlds, hundreds of stations, billions of people spread across the stars. And yet to the aliens of the Dominion they were still unknown, still unproven. Lieutenant appeared at side. He was her chief of security, a former ground soldier with scars on his hands and a careful way of watching every room he entered. "I don't like this," he said quietly. "You don't like anything," replied. "I like things I can control. This," he gestured at the massive station ahead. "We're walking into their house, their rules. If something goes wrong, we have no way out." Understood his worry, but she also understood something else. If we hide from every risk, we never grow, we never learn, we stay small. Nodded slowly. He didn't agree, but he accepted her decision. That was enough. The docking was smooth. They had sent a welcoming party. There were creatures of all shapes and sizes. Some had 4 legs, some had 6, some floated in special tanks of liquid. All of them watched the humans with curious eyes. Doctor, the ship's medical officer, walked beside as they entered the station. She was already taking notes on her data pad, studying every alien she saw. "Fascinating," she whispered. "Look at the diversity. These species evolved on completely different worlds, and yet they found a way to work together." "Let's hope they want to work with us too," said. The welcoming ceremony was held in a great hall. The ceiling was so high that clouds actually formed near the top. Thousands of aliens filled the space. They stood on different levels, built for their different body types, and at the center, on a raised platform, stood the human delegation. An official, a tall creature with silver skin and 4 arms, began speaking. Translation devices turned its words into English. "Today, we welcome humanity to the Gathering. We have watched your species from afar. You are young. You are curious. We hope you will bring new perspectives to our union." Stepped forward to respond. She had practiced this speech 100 times. "On behalf of Earth and all human colonies, we thank you for this invitation. We come in peace. We come to learn. We come to..." The explosion threw her off her feet. Fire and smoke filled the great hall. Screams echoed from every direction. Hit the ground hard, her ears ringing, her vision blurred. She could taste blood in her mouth. Captain was there pulling her up. His face was covered in dust, but his eyes were sharp. "We have to move." Another explosion, closer this time, saw bodies on the ground. Some were alien, some were human. "What's happening?" she demanded. "Attack," said. "Someone is attacking the station." Plasma fire cut through the smoke. Saw shapes moving, tall, armored figures carrying weapons. They were shooting at everything. Aliens, humans, anyone in their path. "Crimson Tide," someone screamed. "It's the Crimson Tide." Didn't know what that meant. She would learn later that the Crimson Tide was a terrorist group. Extremists who believed that new species would corrupt the Dominion. They had decided that humanity was a disease that needed to be cut out. But in that moment, all knew was that her people were dying. She saw Ensign firing a sidearm at an attacker. The young woman was screaming, tears running down her face, but she kept shooting until her weapon ran empty. Then she picked up a piece of broken metal and kept fighting. She saw Doctor dragging a wounded crew member behind cover, her medical training taking over even as chaos raged around her. She saw Engineer, just 26 years old, using his own body to shield a fallen colleague from plasma fire. And she saw 3 of her people die. Lieutenant Park took a shot through the chest. Ensign Bora was caught in an explosion. Technician simply vanished in a ball of fire. Something cold settled in his chest. The fear was still there, but something else was growing alongside it. Something older, something harder. "Everyone," she shouted, "fall back, get to the lower levels." Organize the retreat. He moved like a machine, never stopping, never hesitating. He pulled people out of danger. He returned fire at the attackers. He did everything a soldier was supposed to do. The surviving humans, 19 of them, fled into the depths of the station. Behind them, the attackers laughed. To them, this was sport. Hunt the weak creatures. Kill the soft humans. Show the galaxy that Earth's children did not belong among the stars. The Crimson Tide commander, a massive creature named, watched the humans run. He had 6 limbs and armor that looked like it had been grown rather than made. His mouth was full of teeth designed for tearing meat. "Follow them," he ordered his hunters. "Make it slow. I want the galaxy to see what happens to those who think they can join our dominion." His hunters obeyed eagerly. This would be easy. Humans were soft, humans were weak. Everyone knew this. Deep in the lower levels of the station, Captain gathered her surviving crew. They were wounded. They were scared. Some of them were crying. The aliens who had seen them leave expected them to hide in a corner and wait for death. But's eyes had changed. The warmth was gone. In its place was something the Crimson Tide had never seen before, something they could not understand. "They killed our people," she said quietly. Her voice was steady, too steady. "They think we're prey." Checked his weapon. "What are your orders, Captain?" Looked at her crew, 19 humans, wounded, trapped on an alien station with killers hunting them. She smiled. It was not a nice smile. "They want to hunt," she said. "They have no idea what they've started." Lower levels of the station were dark and cold. Pipes ran along the walls like metal veins. The air smelled of oil and old dust. This was where the machines lived, where the workers came to fix things that broke. It was not meant for visitors. But for 19 desperate humans, it was the only home they had. Captain led her people through the maze of corridors. She had no map. She had no plan. All she had was instinct and the knowledge that staying still meant death. So they moved, always moving, always listening for the sound of hunters behind them. Doctor worked as they walked. She had saved a medical kit from the chaos above, and now she used it on anyone who needed help. Bandages for cuts, injections for pain, soft words for fear. A translator had joined them. His name was. He had blue skin and eyes that were too large for his face. He had been giving a tour to some human delegates when the attack happened. Now he was trapped with them, shaking with terror. "They will find us," whispered. "The Crimson Tide always finds their prey. We should surrender. Perhaps they will show mercy." "Mercy?" Lieutenant's voice was sharp. "They just killed 28 of our people for no reason. You think surrender will help?" "Shrank back, I only meant." "Enough said. We keep moving." They found a large storage room and decided to rest. The humans collapsed against walls and boxes, exhausted. Some closed their eyes. Others stared at nothing, still seeing the fire and blood from above. Ensign sat apart from the others. She was holding her shoulder, and even in the dim light, could see the dark stain spreading across her uniform. A plasma bolt had hit her during the escape. Doctor knelt beside her. "Let me see." Moved her hand. The wound was bad, burned flesh and damaged muscle. By all rights, she should have been unconscious from shock. Instead, she was awake, alert, and angry. "How are you still functioning?" asked, genuinely surprised. I don't know, admitted. I don't feel it. I mean, I know it's there, but the pain is far away, like it's happening to someone else. Nodded slowly. Adrenaline, your body is protecting you. Crept closer, his large eyes fixed on the wound. I do not understand. This injury is severe. Any would be unconscious. Some would be dead. How is she still awake? Cleaned the wound, as she explained. Human bodies have a survival system. When we face danger, our glands release chemicals into our blood. Adrenaline is the most important one. It does many things. It makes our hearts beat faster. It sends more blood to our muscles. It sharpens our senses. And the pain? Asked. Blocked, said. The body decides that pain is not useful right now. Survival is more important, so it turns the pain off like flipping a switch. Later, when the danger is gone, the pain comes back. But in the moment, we can keep fighting even with wounds that should stop us. Stared at with something like horror. You can ignore mortal injuries. Not ignore, said. Her eyes were hard. Just delay, and while we delay, we fight. A sound echoed through the corridors. Footsteps, heavy ones. The hunters were coming. Everyone moved at once. Positioned people with weapons near the doors. Started looking for another exit. Drew her sidearm and waited. The footsteps grew louder, closer. Then they stopped. Silence. Then the door exploded inward. 3 crimson-tide hunters charged into the room. They were fast and strong, their weapons already firing. Plasma bolts cut through the air. Shot one in the chest. It fell but kept moving, pulling itself toward him even as it died. He shot it again. The second hunter targeted. Perhaps it sensed she was wounded. Perhaps it thought she was easy prey. It was wrong. Didn't run, she didn't hide. She charged directly at the hunter, screaming. The alien fired, but she moved faster than its aim could follow. She reached it before it could fire again. In her hand was a piece of broken metal she had found in the corridor. It wasn't much of a weapon, but in the grip of a human flooded with adrenaline, it became something terrible. She drove the metal into the hunter's throat. The alien made a wet, gurgling sound. It tried to push her away, but she held on. Her wounded shoulder screamed in pain that she could not feel. Her muscles burned with effort that she did not notice. All she knew was that this creature had killed her friends. This creature had laughed while humans died. She pushed the metal deeper. The hunter fell. The third attacker saw what happened to its companions. For a moment, just a moment, something like fear crossed its face. Then shot it, and it thought nothing at all. When it was over, the humans stood among 3 dead hunters. They were breathing hard. Some were crying, but they were alive. Looked at with wide, terrified eyes. She was covered in alien blood. Her shoulder wound had opened wider, and yet she stood there, metal weapon still in her hand, ready for more. "What are you?" he whispered. Doctor answered for her. "We are human. We evolved on a world that tried to kill us every day. Predators with teeth, predators with claws, disease, starvation, cold. We survived all of it, not because we were the strongest, not because we were the fastest, but because when death came for us, we refused to stop." She looked at the dead hunters on the floor. "You hurt us and we keep fighting. You wound us and we keep standing. You kill our friends and we become something you cannot defeat." Finally understood. These humans were not prey. They never had been. The Crimson Tide had made a terrible mistake. They had wounded the humans. They had made them angry. And now, deep in the station's lower levels, 19 exhausted, injured, furious humans were preparing to show the galaxy exactly what that meant. Captain looked at her crew. "We need to move before more come. Everyone who can walk, help those who can't. Take point. Find us a route that keeps us hidden." "Where are we going?" asked. His eyes were cold. "Up. They think they're hunting us. It's time to show them what a real hunt looks like." One by one, the humans moved out. Behind them, they left 3 dead hunters and a terrified alien translator who was beginning to realize that the galaxy had made a terrible mistake in underestimating humanity. The Crimson Tide had wanted to show the universe that humans were weak. Instead, they were about to learn the truth. And the truth would be written in their own blood. Sat in the station's command center, watching screens that showed different parts of the gathering. His hunters were spread throughout the lower levels, searching for the human survivors. This was supposed to be easy. This was supposed to be fun. It was neither. "Report," he growled at one of his officers. The officer looked nervous. "Team 3 has not responded to communications in over an hour, Commander." "Send someone to find them." We did, Commander. We found them, all 3 of them dead." Many limbs twitched with annoyance. "Dead? How?" "They were hunting wounded prey." "We do not know, Commander. The wounds were unusual. One had a piece of metal through its throat. Another had its neck broken. The third was beaten to death." Stared at the officer. Beaten to death by humans, those small, soft creatures. "It appears so, Commander." This was not possible, had conquered dozens of worlds. He had hunted creatures far more dangerous than humans. He knew what prey looked like. Humans were prey. They had no claws, no fangs, no natural weapons. They should have been cowering in a corner, waiting for death. Instead, his hunters were dying. "Find them," he ordered. "All teams, find the humans and end this." The officer bowed and left, turned back to the screens, watching, waiting. Somewhere in the depths of his station, something was wrong. He just didn't know what. Deep below, the hunt had indeed reversed. Lieutenant led a team of 8 humans through the maintenance tunnels. They moved in silence, using hand signals to communicate. Their weapons were a mix of sidearms and improvised tools, pieces of metal, heavy wrenches, anything that could hurt. They had found a pattern. The Crimson Tide hunters moved in groups of 3 or 4. They were confident, loud, sure that nothing could stop them. They did not know that human ears could hear their footsteps from far away. They did not know that human eyes could adjust to the dark. And they did not know that humans were patient. Held up his fist. The team stopped. Ahead, around a corner, he could hear voices, 3 hunters talking among themselves. He turned to his team and made 3 quick signs. 3 targets, surround, attack together. The team split up, moving like shadows. 2 went left, 3 went right, 3 stayed with. The hunters never saw them coming. Struck first, firing 2 shots into the nearest hunter's head. The second hunter turned, weapon rising, but 2 humans were already on it, dragging it down with their weight. The third tried to run, but a thrown wrench caught it in the back of the skull. It was over in seconds. His team did not celebrate. They gathered weapons from the fallen and moved on. There were more hunters ahead, more work to do. Elsewhere in the station, found herself alone. She had been with a small group, moving through an old arboretum filled with alien plants. The plants were strange, colors that Earth had never seen, shapes that made no sense. Under other circumstances, she might have found them beautiful. Then the hunters had attacked. In the chaos, she had gotten separated. Now she crouched behind a pile of alien flowers, listening to heavy footsteps getting closer. 3 hunters. She could see them through gaps in the plants. They were big, armed, dangerous. And she had nothing, just a small knife she had taken from the ship's kitchen. The logical thing to do was hide, stay quiet, hope they passed by. But thought about the faces of her dead. She thought about Ensign Bora, who had shared meals with her during the long journey here. She thought about Lieutenant Park, who had always made jokes to keep morale up. She thought about Technician, who had taught her how to play an old Earth card game just 2 days ago. They were dead. These creatures had killed them. These creatures were hunting her like an animal. Something inside changed. The fear did not disappear, but it transformed. It became something else, something hot and sharp and terrible. When the hunters came close to her hiding spot, she did not run. She attacked. The first hunter never knew what happened, launched herself from the plants, knife first, and drove the blade into its eye. It screamed, a horrible, high sound, and fell. The second hunter swung at her with its weapon. She ducked under its arm, twisted, and slashed across its throat. Alien blood sprayed across her face. The third hunter was faster. It grabbed her arm, crushing it with inhuman strength, felt bones creak. Pain exploded through her. But she did not stop. Her free hand found the knife still embedded in the first hunter's eye. She pulled it out and drove it into her attacker's face. Once, twice, 3 times, the grip on her arm loosened. The hunter fell. When's team found her 20 minutes later was sitting against a wall. Her arm hung at a wrong angle. Bruises covered her body. Blood, not hers, dripped from her face and hands. 3 dead hunters surrounded her. "They thought I was done," she whispered as knelt beside her. "I wasn't done." Looked at the bodies. He looked at the small knife in his hand. He looked at this quiet young woman who everyone had always underestimated. "No," he said quietly, "you weren't." They regrouped in an abandoned storage area. 14 humans remained. Some were badly wounded. All were exhausted, but something had changed in their eyes. Captain looked at her crew. She saw arm splinted, still holding her knife. She saw shoulder wrapped in bloody bandages, reloading a captured weapon. She saw hands shaking from exhaustion, but still working to build explosives from maintenance supplies. "How many hunters have we killed?" she asked. "Best count," replied, 18, maybe 20. "And how many do they have left?" "Unknown, probably 30 or 40. Nodded. The odds were still against them. They were still wounded, still trapped, still. But now the enemy knew fear. Now the enemy understood that humans were not prey. "We're not just going to survive," said. Her voice carried to every corner of the room. "We're taking back this station. We're showing these creatures what happens when you hurt humans." No one argued. No one complained about the wounds or the exhaustion or the impossible odds. They were past all that now. The adrenaline was still pumping through their veins. The rage was still burning in their hearts. And somewhere above them, the Crimson Tide was finally beginning to understand that they had made a terrible mistake. They had started a hunt. But they were no longer the hunters. Outside the station, the Dominion fleet had gathered. Dozens of warships surrounded the gathering, their weapons ready. But they could not attack. The Crimson Tide controlled the station's defenses. Any assault would result in massive destruction. Inside the station was no longer sitting comfortably in the command center. He was packing, his 6 limbs carrying him back and forth across the room like a caged beast. "How many have we lost?" he demanded. His remaining officer checked the data with trembling hands. 37 hunters, Commander, confirmed dead." 37, his voice cracked with disbelief. "Against 19 wounded humans, how is this possible?" The officer had no answer. Reports had been coming in for hours. Each one was worse than the last. Hunters found dead in corridors. Hunters killed in ambushes. Hunters who stopped responding to communications and were later discovered with their throats cut or their skulls crushed. The humans had become ghosts. They appeared from nowhere, struck with terrible violence, and vanished before reinforcements could arrive. They used the station's own systems against the Crimson Tide, closing doors to trap hunters, cutting power to create darkness, filling corridors with steam from broken pipes. And they never stopped. "They should be dying," muttered. "I've seen the damage reports. Some of them have injuries that should be fatal. How are they still fighting?" The translator had been captured hours ago when he tried to sneak away from the humans. He sat in a corner, hands bound, listening to confusion. "You do not understand them," said quietly. Turned on him, "Explain." "Their bodies, they are different. When they are threatened, they become something else. Their pain disappears. Their strength increases. Their fear transforms into rage. The more you hurt them, the more dangerous they become. Stared at him. That is not possible. No species can function that way. Humans can, said. I watched a woman with a hole burned through her shoulder kill a hunter with her bare hands. I watched another human, small and quiet, destroy 3 of your soldiers with nothing but a kitchen knife. I watched their captain with a broken arm lead her people like nothing was wrong. He looked at with something like pity. You made them angry, you made them desperate, you killed their friends and thought they would break. Instead, you woke something up, something old and terrible. They call it adrenaline. I call it the thing that makes humans terrifying. Said nothing for a long moment. Then he turned to his remaining hunters. Seal the command center. All units fall back to defensive positions. We hold until. The explosion cut off his words. The main door to the command center blew inward, filling the room with smoke and fire. Through the chaos, figures emerged. Humans. Wounded, bloody, exhausted, but moving with terrible purpose. Lieutenant led the charge. He had a blade wound in his side that was still bleeding, but he moved as if he didn't notice. His weapon fired in controlled bursts, each shot finding a target. Behind him came, her burned shoulder wrapped in dirty bandages, carrying a plasma rifle taken from a dead hunter. Her face was pale from blood loss, but her eyes were bright with fury. Came next, throwing improvised explosives that he had built from maintenance supplies. Each one detonated with precise timing, creating chaos among the defenders. And at the center of it all was Captain. Her left arm hung useless at her side, broken in 2 places. Blood ran down her face from a cut above her eye. She had not slept in over 40 hours. She had not eaten in 2 days. By every measure, she should have been unconscious or dead. Instead, she was giving orders. Left flank, cover fire, the door controls, seal them in. The battle for the command center was brutal. The Crimson Tide fought hard, but they were fighting something they could not understand. Humans who should have fallen but didn't. Humans who took wounds that should have stopped them but kept coming. Humans who had somehow turned their weakness into the most terrifying strength. Found herself face to face with a hunter twice her size. Her arm was still broken, held in a rough sling. The hunter laughed and raised its weapon. Didn't give it time to fire. She threw herself at its legs, knocking it off balance. As it fell, she grabbed a piece of broken metal from the floor and drove it through the hunter's throat. She stood over its body, breathing hard, covered in blood. Stay down, she whispered to the corpse. Tried to flee. He ran for a back exit, his 6 limbs carrying him faster than any human could match, but had anticipated this. He had positioned people at every exit. The commander of the Crimson Tide found himself surrounded by 3 wounded humans. They looked at him with empty, exhausted eyes. You hunted us, one of them said. You killed our friends, you thought we would be easy prey. Looked at these small, soft, bleeding creatures, and for the first time in his long life, he felt true fear. What are you? He asked. We are human, said, stepping through the smoke. His blade wound had opened further. Blood dripped down his side, but he moved as if he felt nothing at all. We are what happens when you push something into a corner and expect it to die. He raised his weapon. We don't die easy. The shot echoed through the command center. When the smoke cleared, the Crimson Tide was finished, lay dead on the floor. His remaining hunters had either been killed or had thrown down their weapons in surrender. The humans had won. Captain stood at the main control console, her broken arm throbbing with pain that she could finally feel returning. The adrenaline was fatting. The strength was leaving her body. Every wound, every bruise, every moment of exhaustion was crashing down on her at once. But before she collapsed, she had one more thing to do. She opened a communication channel to the Dominion fleet outside. This is Captain of the human vessel Horizon's Edge, she said. Her voice was hoarse but steady. The station is secure. The Crimson Tide has been defeated. We need medical assistance for survivors." There was a long pause. Then a voice responded, filled with disbelief. "Confirmed, Captain. We are sending teams now. How many humans survived?" Looked around the command center. She counted the faces of her crew. 14 humans, some standing, some sitting, some lying on the floor, too wounded to move. 14, she said. 14 out of 47. Another pause. And the Crimson Tide looked at the bodies scattered across the room. She thought about all the hunters they had killed in the lower levels, all the terrorists who had thought they were hunting prey. "None," she said simply. "There are no Crimson Tide left." She ended the communication and finally let herself fall. Caught her before she hit the ground. "Easy, Captain," he said. "We've got you." Looked up at him. His face was pale. His wound was still bleeding, but he was smiling. "Did we do it?" she asked. "We did it." Closed her eyes. For the first time in days, she allowed herself to rest. 1 week had passed since the battle for the gathering. The station was slowly returning to normal. Repair crews worked to fix the damage. Diplomats arrived to discuss what had happened. News spread across the galaxy like fire through dry grass. 14 humans had defeated an army. In the station's medical bay, the survivors of the Horizon's Edge were recovering. Most were in serious condition. Broken bones, plasma burns, internal injuries. Doctor had told them that it would take months for some of them to fully heal. But they were alive. Captain lay in a medical bed, her broken arm wrapped in a healing cast. Machines monitored her heartbeat and blood pressure. Doctors came and went, checking on her with expressions of wonder and fear. She had become famous. The story of what the humans had done was being told on every world in the Dominion. At first, no one believed it. 14 wounded survivors against dozens of trained hunters. Impossible. The humans must have had help. The humans must have had secret weapons. Then the evidence started coming in. Security footage from the station showed everything. The initial attack, the retreat to the lower levels, the first ambush where killed a hunter with a piece of metal through its throat, the moment when, alone and injured, destroyed 3 attackers with nothing but a kitchen knife. Species across the galaxy watched these recordings with growing horror. The humans didn't fight like prey. They fought like something else entirely, something that got stronger when it was wounded, something that became more dangerous when it was cornered, something that simply refused to stop. Medical experts analyzed the data and confirmed what Doctor had explained during the crisis. Human bodies produced chemicals in response to danger. Adrenaline blocked pain and increased strength. Cortisol sustained energy. Endorphins created a kind of numbness that allowed humans to keep functioning even with severe injuries. One scientist described it as the most terrifying survival mechanism I have ever seen. Another called humans the perfect persistence predators. A third simply said, "Never make them angry." The Dominion Council requested a formal meeting with Captain. She was brought to the council chamber in a wheeled chair, too weak to walk, but her eyes were clear and her voice was steady. The chamber was enormous. Representatives from every species in the Dominion sat in their designated areas. Some floated in tanks, some clung to walls, some perched on platforms designed for their unique bodies. All of them stared at the small, pale human in the wheeled chair. The senior diplomat, the same silver-skinned creature who had begun the welcoming ceremony before everything went wrong, spoke first. "Captain, on behalf of the Dominion, we offer our deepest apologies for what happened. The Crimson Tide was an extremist group that we failed to stop. Their actions do not represent our values." Nodded slowly, "I understand." "We also wish to understand." The diplomat paused, choosing words carefully. "Your species has been observed for many years. We believed humans to be physically unremarkable, No natural weapons, no armor, relatively short. We did not consider you a threat." "We're not a threat," said. "We came here to make friends. We came here to learn and share and grow together." "And yet, when threatened, 14 of you destroyed an organization that has terrorized our dominion for centuries." The diplomat leaned forward. "How?" Thought about the question. She thought about her crew, still recovering in the medical bay. She thought about the ones who hadn't made it, the 33 faces she would never see again. She thought about the terror and the rage and the desperate determination that had carried them through those impossible hours. "We are pursuit predators," she said finally. "Do you know what that means?" "No," the diplomat admitted. "On our millions of years ago, we did not have claws or fangs. We could not run as fast as the animals we hunted. We could not fight them in direct combat, so we developed another strategy. We chased them." The chamber was silent. "We would follow an animal for hours, days sometimes. We walked when they ran. We kept going when they needed to rest. We tracked them by footprints and broken branches and scent trails. And eventually, no matter how fast they were, no matter how strong, they would collapse from exhaustion. And then we would kill them." Looked around the chamber at all the alien faces watching her. "That is what we are. That is what we have always been. We are not the strongest. We are not the fastest, but we do not stop. We cannot stop. It is built into our bodies, into our minds, into our very DNA. When we are threatened, when we are hurt, when we are pushed to the edge of death, something inside us wakes up, something ancient, something that remembers every predator that ever tried to kill us in the dark. And that something says, 'Not today.'" The diplomat stared at her for a long moment. "You are saying, your greatest strength is that you refuse to quit?" "Yes," said simply. "Wound us and we keep fighting, corner us and we become more dangerous. Kill some of us and the survivors become monsters. You can beat a human, you can hurt a human, but unless you kill every single one of us, we will find a way to come back. We will find a way to win." Silence filled the chamber. No one spoke, no one moved. Finally, the diplomat said, "The Dominion would like to propose a full alliance with humanity. Military cooperation, trade agreements, mutual defense pacts." Raised an eyebrow. "That's a sudden change of heart." "It is a strategic decision," the diplomat admitted. "We have seen what humans can do when they are enemies. We would prefer to see what they can do as friends." And there it was, the truth behind all the diplomatic language. The Dominion was afraid. They had seen the footage. They had read the reports. They knew that somewhere among the stars there was a species that looked soft and weak and harmless, but became something else entirely when threatened. They didn't want to be on the wrong side of that. Smiled slightly. "I will pass your proposal to our government. I'm sure they will be interested." The meeting ended, was wheeled back to the medical bay. Along the way, aliens stepped aside to let her pass. They bowed their heads. They whispered to each other in languages she didn't understand. But she knew what they were saying. They were talking about the humans, the small, soft, weak creatures who had walked into the heart of an enemy stronghold and walked out victorious. The species that had turned pain into strength and fear into rage. The galaxy had learned a lesson it would never forget. Back in the medical bay was waiting for her. His wound was healing slowly. He would have a scar for the rest of his life. "How did it go?" he asked. "They offered us an alliance." "Out of friendship?" "Out of fear." Nodded. "Good. Fear keeps people honest." Looked around the medical bay. She saw, sleeping peacefully for the first time in days. She saw, arm in a proper cast now, reading something on a data pad. She saw, trying to explain human engineering to a confused doctor. 14 survivors, 33 dead. The price had been terrible, but they had shown the galaxy something important, something that would change how every species looked at humanity from now on. "They thought we were finished," said quietly. "When the attack happened, when our people started dying, they thought it was over. They thought we would break." But we didn't, said. No, we didn't, closed her eyes. Because that's not what humans do. We don't break. We bend, we bleed, we suffer, but we don't break. She thought about the millions of humans spread across 12 colony worlds. Scientists and soldiers, farmers and builders, children and elders, ordinary people living ordinary lives. None of them knew what had happened on the gathering yet, but soon they would. Soon every human in the galaxy would know that when their brothers and sisters were threatened, they became something incredible, something unstoppable, something that even a galaxy full of aliens had learned to fear. Get some rest, Captain said. You've earned it. Nodded, but before she closed her eyes, she allowed herself one last thought. The galaxy had seen what adrenaline did to humans, and they would never forget it.